How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Set 6, and today we're going to take a little bit of a break from Final Fantasy VII Rebirth content. I know, the views will probably be dreadful. But in the last, well, nearly a year now, wow, it's been a year since Rebirth came out. That's pretty crazy. Well, nearly a year. But in the last year since Rebirth came out, we have covered a lot of ground. We've done a lot of Rebirth content, and there is still more to come. We're not done, but we are reaching kind of like the quiet phase now, where we just kind of sat around waiting and anticipating some new news, and this led to me thinking, what can we talk about? And one of my favourite things to do is to exploit Final Fantasy games and break them and do things that we're not allowed to do and things like that. You know, I'm very into that. So what we've got today is 10 of probably my favourite exploits to use in Final Fantasy games, or at least the 10 that came to my mind first. We're not going to cover everything in this list. There are a lot of exploits in the Final Fantasy franchise, so when you get to the end of the video, head down to the comments below and let me know what your favourite Final Fantasy exploits are, or any that I may have missed. But yeah, I've waffled enough now. So, like the video, subscribe for future content, but let's jump straight into my top 10 Final Fantasy exploits, I suppose. Now for the first exploit, we're going to keep it very simple. Very, very simple. This is an easy one. This is a basic one. I think everybody knows about this one. If you don't, you're welcome. But it's the ability to use Phoenix Downs on undead enemies and bosses especially, and just get an easy win. You can do this against a lot of enemies across the whole franchise. Probably the main one that I discovered this one from was the Gin attack in Final Fantasy VII. But yeah, this is just a general one that you can do. It works really well in Final Fantasy VIII against the fake president. There are loads of examples of this working. Just keep it in mind, whenever you're fighting an undead boss, try and throw a Phoenix down at it. You never know. Next up, we have the Conformer bug from Final Fantasy VII. In Final Fantasy VII, when you get later on into the game, you may reach a point where you want to farm sources. Sources in Final Fantasy VII are the items that give you a boost to a specific stat. So a power source will boost your strength, a magic source will boost your magic, etc. And the only reliable way to get these is to use the Morph ability against certain specific enemies. But one of the biggest drawbacks of the Morph materia is that it attacks at only a fraction of your actual power. I believe it operates at 1/8 of your attack power. Unless you're using Yuffie and the Conformer. Due to a programming oversight of some sort, the Conformer attacks at its normal, full attack power, meaning that as long as you're using Yuffie and the Conformer, you can morph power sources, magic sources, whatever, from enemies much easier than you are able to with any other character. Now, at number 8, I'm cheating a little bit. I'm going to include a few exploits in this one, because they're all kind of dead. They only really exist in the original versions of the games. These are things from the earlier Final Fantasies, like Final Fantasy 1 through 6, and these include things like the peninsulas that you used to be able to find, which were areas where certain map tiles overlaid with each other in a way that would allow you to fight enemies that you should fight much later in the game, far earlier in the game. There is a small example of something similar in Final Fantasy VIII, where you can encounter cactuars much earlier than you should be able to if you go to a specific part of the southern continent. I'll put it up on screen now so you can see it, but it's a nice way that you can farm AP much earlier in the game than you should be able to, and this is the same sort of premise. It was areas where you would be able to fight enemies that you shouldn't be able to fight yet, and get massive amounts of rewards. Another example of this is in Final Fantasy VII, where you can flip the alarm in the corridor in Junon, and you can encounter enemies that you wouldn't be able to encounter until Disc 2, but you can do that pretty much immediately after reaching Costa del Sol. Definitely a known thing to watch out for, especially in older Final Fantasies, are these areas where you can fight enemies that you shouldn't yet be able to, and there's a lot of them. But when it comes to the older Final Fantasies, a lot of them have been patched out with things like the Pixel remasters, so you're not really going to find them as much in the older games. Another example of a fun old glitch that doesn't work anymore is the Vanish Doom exploit from Final Fantasy VI, where essentially you cast Vanish on an enemy, and when they're under the effect of Vanish, physical attacks don't work on them, but magic attacks always hit. And because of that, you can cast Doom on an enemy, it will almost always hit, and therefore you can kill enemies with Doom that you might not necessarily be able to kill with it. It also works with X-Zone as well, and yeah, it's just a really cool little thing that you used to be able to do, but as far as I know, doesn't work in the Pixel Remaster version of the game. Let me know if I'm wrong about that. I didn't actually test it myself, I'm kind of going off what I've seen on the internet, I've just searched to see if it worked, and most people seem to be saying that it doesn't, but let me know. And let me know about any other old glitches and exploits that have been removed from old Final Fantasy games in more modern versions of the game, because there are some that I won't know about, so, you know, let me know in the comments below. Okay, we're going to start getting into some slightly more useful ones now. And that's not to say that the earlier ones aren't useful, but we're getting into the really good stuff now, and we're going to start off with the Thunder Plains exploit. In Final Fantasy X, in order to power up every character's ultimate weapon, you have to find the respective crest and the respective sigil. And that's fine for most people. Wakka's is a little bit of a pain, but Lulu's is probably the worst one. In my opinion, I feel like it's the worst one. And what you have to do in order to get the Venus sigil for Lulu is you need to go to the Thunder Plains, and you need to dodge 200 lightning bolts in a row without getting hit. Now, those of you that don't know this exploit know the pain of that, but thankfully, there is an easy way around this. First off, to make life easy on yourself, you need to equip some no encounters equipment. It's just something that'll stop you from getting into encounters. You don't want to be dealing with fights while you're doing this, so make sure that's the case. And then you're going to head to Rin's travel agency in the Thunder Plains and head south. And in the southwestern corner of this area, you'll find a tower with a small crater just to the north of it. And as far as I know, this is the only spot where you can predict a lightning bolt. And basically what you want to do is you want to run to the tower and then run over to the crater, and just as you cross over the edge of the crater going into it, a lightning bolt will be triggered. And this happens pretty much every single time. So all you do is you run from the tower to the crater, dodge the lightning bolt, run back to the tower. You do that to make sure that you don't get hit with any random lightning bolts in between, and then just repeat. Keep doing this, and as long as you concentrate, you'll pull it off. I never managed to dodge 200 lightning bolts without doing this. The first time I tried to do this, I nailed it. So yeah, it's very useful, very powerful, and saves you a lot of stress. This is essential information for anyone who's playing Final Fantasy X. Next up, we're checking out Final Fantasy XII, and a trick that I'm quite a fan of, the Dustia trick. This trick lets you fill up on expensive items that you shouldn't really be able to get at this point of the game, and big chunks of XP and LP. It definitely has diminishing returns. You can't really abuse this for too long, but in the time that you can abuse this exploit, it gets you a lot of stuff. It gets you a lot of stuff and it makes you powerful. So that's a win. That is a win. There is a little bit of setup to it that I'll talk about in another video. I'll probably drop a little guide video for this at some point in itself. But basically what you do is you zone in and out of an area, you kill an enemy with a Phoenix down, and then you leave the area before the XP and LP values pop up on the screen. And what the game does is, it'll still give you the XP and the LP, but it doesn't register the fact that that enemy is dead until the XP and LP pops up on the screen, meaning that you can then go back into the same area, trigger the same enemy, and do the same thing again. Like I say, it's a really useful exploit early on in Final Fantasy XII. It gets you nice and strong, it gets you a lot of money. Definitely check out the Dustia trick. I'll definitely pop a short guide on the channel myself at some point as well. Next, we visit Final Fantasy X and the Overdrive AP exploit, or as it's more commonly known, the Don Tombury exploit, where what you do is you get a weapon that's got triple overdrive, triple AP, and then overdrive to AP on each of your characters. Set 2 of the characters to Comrade as their overdrive mode and one of them to Stoic, and then use the character that's in Stoic to attack one of the Monster Arena's most famous creations, the Don Tombury. And let's be honest, it's only famous because of this exploit. Basically, Don Tombury will retaliate with Karma against the person that attacks it, which is the character that you have on Overdrive Stoic. They will then get triple the amount of overdrive that they should have got, which will then be converted to AP, and then be tripled by the triple AP on the weapon. The same thing then happens for the 2 characters that are on Comrade Overdrive mode, and yeah, everybody wins. You get a ludicrous amount of AP. It is the way that you fly around the sphere grid in Final Fantasy X and unlock every node and get everything maxed out where you need it to be. Doing it without the Don Tombury exploit would just be ludicrous. It would just be absolutely ludicrous. So if you're hunting for that platinum in Final Fantasy X, this is something that you probably already know, and if it wasn't, you're welcome. Next up, we're in Final Fantasy IX, and we're looking at the Cotton Robe exploit, which is an extremely useful thing to do in Final Fantasy IX. You can get a little bit short of money from time to time, and this exploit just guarantees that that is not going to be the case. This exploit just purely focuses on profit. The first thing that you need is the wrist accessory, which costs 130 gil to purchase from shops, and then you also need the steepled hat, which costs 260 gil. You then take these two items to a synthesis shop, where you can convert them at a cost of 1,000 gil into a cotton robe. A cotton robe will sell for 2,000 gil, leaving you with a profit of 610 gil. Now, that doesn't sound like much, but when you take a stack of 99 wrists and a stack of 99 steepled hats and do this, you're able to turn around quite a bit of profit. The very earliest time that you can take advantage of this is when you first visit the village of Dali, where you'll want to purchase as many wrists as you can, preferably 99, and then when you get to Lindblum, you buy steepled hats, again, as many as possible, and then go to the synthesis shop and make cotton robes and profit. Nice and simple, but there are only certain times when you can do it, so you've got to keep an eye out. Whenever you are able to purchase the wrist item or the steepled hat item, get as many as you can, so that when you are next at a synthesis shop, you're good to go. Okay, we're into the top three now. These are the big hitters in my opinion, and the first one, it's not even really an exploit, but it is. It's so powerful, it is more powerful than an exploit, and that is Triple Triad. In Final Fantasy VIII, Triple Triad is the card game that you can play. It is the greatest minigame in all of Final Fantasy. Queen's Blood is fun, but it's not Triple Triad. Tetramaster is awful, and it's definitely not Triple Triad. Chocobo breeding and racing is fun, but it's not Triple Triad. And you can use Triple Triad to break Final Fantasy VIII into little tiny pieces. I'm gonna guess most of you already know this because it's a very old way to break Final Fantasy VIII, but just in case you don't know, we'll go over it. So, in Final Fantasy VIII, you play Triple Triad, you win cards off people. The cards are all of different monsters and characters that are within the game, and it's fun. But there is an ability in the game that allows you to modify a card into an item or a collection of items, and this is where things get fun. You can learn the card and card mod abilities quite early by going onto the beach near Balamb, fighting against the Festita Colons that are in the area, get the AP that you need to learn card on Quetzalcoatl. I've probably just butchered that, I apologise. And then once you've learned the card ability, you can then learn the card mod ability. And this is the one that we need. This is the one that lets you turn cards into items directly. Another thing that you can do really quickly while you're out and about is use the card ability in combat on some enemies and turn them into cards just to give yourself a bit of a better starting deck than you get originally. You can be fine just doing it with the original starting deck, but there are a few enemies in the areas surrounding Balamb that can make life a little bit easier, so it's worth doing. But literally then, all you want to do is go back into Balamb. There are certain people that you want to play, but most people will still give you something useful, and just play cards. Just play as many games of cards as possible and win. Make sure you win. If you're losing at cards, this is a pretty useless tip, but as long as you're winning, you're good. I'm not going to go into the specifics of which items you want to hunt for, although the El Noel card is always a good choice if it's an option for you to take from an enemy that you defeat, because you need them for energy crystals, and if you want Disc 1 Lionheart, this is the only way that you can get them. I'm pretty sure it is, at least. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong about that. I'm pretty sure up until like Disc 3, this is the only way you can get energy crystals. But yeah, who knows? Just play Triple Triad, get cards off people, convert them into items, and then use the refinement abilities that you get on your GFs, such as Ifrit, Fire Magic Refine, Shiva, Ice Magic Refine, Quetzalcoatl, Thunder Magic Refine, etc, etc. Use those abilities to then turn the items that you've got from Triple Triad cards into powerful magic that you can then junction to your stats and turn yourself into a powerhouse. Like I say, I'm not going to go into too many specific items because there's just so many useful things, but you can get things like Blizzagas, Thundagas, Faragas, Tornadoes, which are especially useful. So yeah, you can make life easier on yourself by going and getting Ifrit first, because then you get the Ifrit card as well, but you don't need to. You can do it all before the Fire Cavern. It's just power. So yeah, Triple Triad. In second place, we're going back to Final Fantasy XII, and This is a pretty impressive one to me. I don't know why, but this one's always impressed me how people even figured this shit out. It's ludicrous to me, but it's the RNG manipulation in Final Fantasy XII. At the very start of Final Fantasy XII, you have the section that you play through where you are in control of Rex, and on a stairwell there is a save point. You want to save at that save point and just keep that save for a later date. As soon as you start the game, just do that, save the game, carry on. Never overwrite that save. Keep that save forever, because that save allows you to go back, and by casting Cure and seeing what numbers and values come up as the heal, you can track what the RNG of the game will do. So for example, if you want to get the Satangrat, Dave? If you want to get that bow that's really powerful in Final Fantasy XII, you can use this technique in order to guarantee that you get it from a specific chest, and I've tried it several times over the years, it's never failed for me. Basically, once you reach a certain point in the game and you are able to take the Sky Ferry from Rabanastre to Nalbina, you want to go to the deck and you want to save your game. Then you need to close the game completely, shut it down, open the game again, and then load up that save that I told you about a minute ago. You know, the one where you Rex at the start of the game, that one, the one that you never get rid of, that one. And then while you stood next to the save point, you want to cast Cure on yourself until the numbers that you get are 88, 97, and then 90. Now sometimes this number set won't work and you'll have to try one of the other number sets. There are a couple of different sets of numbers that you can get from the Cure that Rex casts at the start of the game that'll decide which item you get. But eventually you will get the correct series of numbers after you've cured, and once you do, you want to exit to the title screen. Do not quit the game at this point because you've got the RNG in the exact spot that you want it. So exit to the title screen, and then load the save that you had when you were stood on the Sky Ferry. Now, there is an invisible chest on the Sky Ferry that you'll want to be stood next to with Van, and you want to watch a guy who's on the deck going up and down the stairs, and on the fourth time that he comes back up the stairs, as soon as he hits the top step, open the chest, and you'll get the Satangrat. There's probably a couple of little nuances to that I've forgotten, so if you are going to do this, make sure that you check out a proper guide on it. I will put a guide up at some point on the channel, but there are also guides out there already that you'll be able to find, and they'll be able to guide you through the process exactly. But this is just super impressive to me. And it's not just useful for this, there are other things that it's useful for throughout the game, but this is probably the main example, because this bow is a beast and it will carry you a good distance into the game. So yeah, check out RNG manipulation in Final Fantasy XII. Very interesting. And then finally, in first place, definitely not biased on my part whatsoever, but it's the W item glitch from Final Fantasy VII, and I just love this one. I figured we'd finish on a nice friendly one. The most impressive one is probably the Final Fantasy XII RNG manipulation. It's just mind-blowing. Whereas this one, it's a much more simple one. All that you have to do to take advantage of this exploit is to have the W item material equipped to someone, in combat, use W item, use the first item that you want to use, it can be anything, and then the second item that you want to use, if you select it and then deselect it, you will just add one to the number of that item. That's it. You can just literally abuse that. You can have 99 of any item that you can use in combat, so Mega Elixirs, X Potions, all of the good stuff. It's a really good one. It's really nostalgic as well, because it's probably the first exploit in a Final Fantasy game that I ever found out about. I'm going to guess it's probably the same for a lot of you as well. If it isn't, tell me what your first exploit was that you ever picked up on or got told about in a Final Fantasy game. But yeah, that is my top 10 Final Fantasy exploits, the ones that jump to the forefront of my mind when I think exploit in Final Fantasy games. Let me know what yours are in the comments below. Maybe not a top 10, give me your top 3, or give me ones that I've missed. If there's any that I've missed, let me know in the comments below. We might even get a part 2 out of this video. You never know. You never know. But that's going to be the end of this one. Thank you very much for watching. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe for future content, but more importantly than all of that, have a great day.